Welcome to the Chosen Companions series. My name is Mike from Showboys, and I'm joined as always by my trusty friend and co-host James from the nerdybible.com. How are you doing tonight, sir?
Good, man. How about you?
Doing well. Excited. It's been a minute since we've recorded, and we have 2 episodes brand new. Well, to me, brand new, but I know they've been out for like a month in theaters. But season 3 has started on the Angel app, the Chosen app, wherever you stream the Chosen. These episodes are now available. Episodes 1 and 2 of season 3 have been out, and we're excited to get in and talk about it because these 2 episodes, there's a lot to. Like you were saying before we started, James, a lot to unpack here in these 2 episodes. So I'm excited to talk about that. I'm excited to talk about like new Chosen.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
this is first viewing, first time, consuming this. So excited about that. I'm excited to talk about something that I don't know what happens next. Like this is going to be a first. There's going to be a lot of firsts for our podcast series tonight. I mean, like technically we know what happens next, but like we haven't seen episode 3, and we're recording episodes 1 and 2. So far up to this point, we've seen every episode that comes after what we've recorded. So excited for that. First off, what did you think of these episodes?
Well,
Actually, first off, before that, how was Disney?
oh,
You
it
just
was
got back from
great.
Disney?
Yes, I did. It was a fantastic time. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. It's been a long week. No, but yeah, Disney was great. Went to Hollywood Studios, got to see Toy Story Land and Star Wars Land and
Ooh,
all the lands. So
nice.
except not Disneyland because that's on the other side of the country. But
Yeah.
Disney World. No, it was pretty cool though. It was a magical place.
Everything you dreamed of.
Well, yeah, I think now that I know it, it felt like we were in the wrong place at the wrong time every moment. Hollywood Studios was fine. Magic Kingdom was like, it was stressful, man. It was like, and my daughter's 6 months old, so
Yeah,
6 months.
that probably.
So it was really a trip for me, and to get my daughter a bunch of, Disney stuffed
Right.
animals and stuff. No, but it was just like everywhere we needed to be, we were like 15 minutes behind. So like we missed a lot. It's just next time it's going to be like, I'm going to sit down a couple days before or a couple months before. I'm going to draw out the map. I'm going to, write in all the places. I'm going to have
Yes.
it all mapped. Yeah.
You're going to be the Matthew of your Disney trip.
Correct. And
Yes,
so
yes.
I learned quickly. I'm 34 and I just made my first trip to Disney. And so the next one will be much more efficient, to say the least. Now, but yeah, then had a wedding and a long trip home.
Yeah, your travel. Oops, I accidentally muted myself. Your travels sounded pretty adventurous on your way home.
Yes, they were. Apparently, it's completely legal to oversell your flights.
Yes, and then just give people seats away.
Yeah, and
that's cool. Thanks.
Me, my wife, and a 6-month-old standing in the middle of an aisle, and in the airplane, standing there, everyone looking at us, like some of them sympathetic, some of them very angry that we're like, but like, I'm sorry, we paid for our ticket a long time ago, and so that didn't matter. And so the answer is no, we did not get on that flight.
Got right back off.
Yeah. So instead of sleeping in an airport with an infant, we bought another plane home. That got delayed. Flew into a different state. Drove a rental car. Like it was like a movie scene. Everything that you could have possibly happened. So, but no, we're home.
You made it.
Yep, 2:30 a.m. last night. So, yeah, no, I'm here and we're ready to talk.
Nice. Looking forward to it. man,
It's the week before Christmas too.
it
In
it
case
is.
you're time traveling here with us, I
Yes.
know Mike's releasing things differently than
Yeah,
I am.
I think at this point,
I'm not sure I understand.
Oh,
all
my watch is talking to me. They don't all right, go on.
perfect. I mean, she's welcome. I
Yeah,
mean, if she's got anything to
yeah.
say, she's more than welcome. Yeah, I think at this point, all the episodes on the Showboys platforms are released, and this episode will be today's Tuesday. I'm gonna have it out and uploaded tomorrow. So on our end, we're gonna be kind of caught up. And with that being said, we're gonna be covering both episodes 1 and 2 in this episode for Showboys. I know James is going to split them on his end. But yeah, there's a lot to uncover here. So let's just roll up the sleeves and get right into it. This first episode starts off. We're telling a little bit of Matthew's backstory, which is really important to touch on just further into the episode after you hear the Sermon on the Mount, how it affects Matthew, and then the end of episode 1 and the beginning of episode 2. It's very important. But we see Matthew's father being arrested by a Roman centurion here for delinquent taxes. Matthew comes up. This is, of course, prior to this is a flashback. 80-24, I believe, is what it said. Matthew comes up, basically saves his father, like tells the Roman, like, hey, it's fine. I miscalculated. He's not past due as bad as we think. And trying to do his father a favor by protecting him. But Matthew's father is not interested in his protection. He's rather upset and disgraced that Matthew is even a tax collector, let alone in this district, like hounding his parents, right? And in this scene, the main takeaway from the scene, Matthew's father just straight up disowns him in like the most savage way ever. He's like, not only does he disown him, but then he's like tells his wife, Matthew's mother, like, go in, shut the doors, close the windows. We're gonna have a 7-day Sheba, which I believe we discovered earlier in past episodes that's basically like a funeral ceremony. So he's just like, yeah, I'm disowning you as my son, and you're dead to me. You're literally dead to me. We're gonna mourn you for 7 days. Like, brutal.
Yes. Yeah, no, it's a pretty brutal scene with that. And I like how they jump to the next portion of that is a I almost said backsplash, backflash or flashback. A flashback. It's a flashback into giving context into what we already knew about Matthew. It's not anything different. We knew his father disowned him, but I like how it jumps to the actual the Sermon on the Mount.
Yes.
And so what we see right here is Matthew. It's like this is him speaking to Matthew.
Yeah.
And then we'll see more. We'll talk more of that later on. But yeah, of why that is foreshadowing something, I would say. But yeah, no, I like how they jump to that. And you alluded to this last podcast, is that he seems to be writing this Sermon on the Mount to his own people. And I think that's in my eyes, I was thinking about Jesus and thinking about all these things as I was watching these episodes, and I was like, oh, like I wonder if he brought on these disciples, these different disciples with different personalities, with different ideas, like for this better like frame of reference for the people that he's speaking to, right? I don't know.
Yeah, and where it cuts into the sermon, it's basically like the part where it's like, if you're coming to bring an offering to the altar, but a brother has a grievance against you, like set your offering aside and go reconcile and then bring your offering. And Matthew's over there with his paper and his little pen, and he's just, you know, getting wrecked right now because that flashback is playing through his mind. And like you said, I really like how they cut up the sermon here, like edit wise in the episode. You know, we get camera shots of like the people that each section kind of applies to, like the whole like, don't be anxious, you know, it's not going to add an hour to your day, what's worry going to do for you, that whole thing, trust in the Father. And like the camera looks at Andrew, of course, who's over there having anxiety attacks left and right about John. And it does that throughout like the entire sermon. And I just really like some of the editing techniques that they do here. I always love it when they make cuts where you kind of have a voiceover over shots where even like Jesus is not saying what you're hearing, but like the way that they're editing it, I love what they did here with the sermon. How they cut it up is really good. But yeah, what did you think about the deliverance of this sermon here? Because it takes up a big chunk of the episode, obviously.
Yeah, and I think
first
it's
10 minutes or so.
Yeah, and I think it's 2 to 3 chapters too. And I think we discussed that last time in Matthew, that it's a nice big chunk of scripture, big section, probably the longest read chunk of read in the, you know, like ongoing dialogue in one sitting, you know.
Yeah. After the sermon's over, we kind of get some shots of reactions, and one of which is Yusuf, our our Law and Order SVU or PVU Pharisee victim unit guy over here. He was in attendance, and this seems to, you know, maybe have some of the wheels turning in old Yusuf's brain here. It looks like he was affected in some way, which we'll, you know, get to eventually later on in the episode. Judas's master teacher, salesman was there. I kind of really like this interaction where the teacher's like, oh, could you, like, that guy was amazing. Could you imagine if we could get him to sell for us? Like, just thinking of ways to turn a profit into what, like, not like money profit, not like profit.
Yeah.
Turn Jesus into profit, right? And Judas is like, I love the interaction. He's like, yeah, I'm actually going to go with him. And he's like, I'll sue you. And he's like, you can have all my money. I don't care. He's like, I'll sue him. He's like, he literally has nothing you could want. I just love his reaction. Just like, I'm going to sue.
Yeah, he's quick to it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and then Judas goes to you know, goes backstage to see the tired Jesus eating.
He's got a VIP passes.
Yeah, and so, and this is where Jesus is kind of, whoop, my goodness, Jesus is kind of just, well, Matthew's being ridiculous, and it's just like, he's like your typical, like,
classic Matthew,
just in your face, like, read the room kind of thing, like, can't read the room, you know. But yeah, so you know, he sends him away, kind of like, thank you, Matthew, but like, you know, please. So, but then Judas comes up, and this is where he calls him, right? I mean, this is you know, but it's different than all the other callings, right? I mean, it seems different.
You want to, before you take us through this, there was one other notable attendee, or attendees, I should say, and that is Gaius and Atticus, our favorite Roman guards and Roman, for lack of better term, CIA agents here. And Gaius is another one that seems to be perplexed or intrigued by this sermon. Atticus is like talking to him about it, like, hey, isn't this gonna be crazy when we tell Quintus about this? And Gaius is just like staring straight ahead, does not say a single thing to Atticus in this whole interaction. And we'll see again later on in this episode and the next episode that Gaius is clearly affected by we're kind of seeing almost what I'm seeing is almost like a Nicodemus type reaction to Jesus by Yusuf and Gaius. Like even Atticus a little bit, where they're intrigued and something in them is kind of like being stirred up. Do you kind of see that, or
No, I
am I just
do.
kinda...
I guess this time running, because I watched this in theater and I didn't pick up on that with Gaius, and then watching it this time I did with he just is quiet.
Mm,
You know, he's like just I don't know, just quiet. Well, he didn't say anything. He's just there's a word I'm trying to think of, like maybe introspective. Like he's just thinking, you know what I
yeah.
mean? He's just like there's something going on up there in his
Yeah.
in his brain.
Right.
Like
Right.
something's moving, some neurons are firing and something, and you know. And so yeah, no, I agree with that. But I can't pick up on Atticus. He just I don't know. Like there's he's like one of those things where it's like he's clearly like spiritual and he
Mhm.
believes something and he's just like cool, great.
Yeah, yeah.
But like I think he's just probably, so familiar with Roman gods that are more of
Mhm.
like just a slew of just gods that are personified,
Mhm.
into whatever thing. So he doesn't really seem like phased in that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he just, it's not that he even like there's any disbelief, he's just kind of like, I don't know. I can't read him. Like if
Yeah.
he, you know what I
If we
mean?
were to order those three, Yusuf, Gaius, and Atticus,
Mm-hmm.
in a list of like who seems to be the most impacted and to least, I would say probably Gaius number one,
Mm-hmm.
with Yusuf being like just like a very high two, like just underneath Gaius,
Yeah.
and then Atticus as like the least of the three. But I think something is going on. It even in the slightest bit, just with an interaction he has with Simon Z on the rooftop in episode 2, where he's like, I just like who is he? Like, what is he? What's gonna happen next? Whereas the other two kind of seem to be like I don't know, slightly deeper level than maybe Atticus. But my wife and I were talking about Gaius, and I did like the probably like most simple Google search on Gaius to see if this character is like an interpretation of anyone from the Bible.
Yeah.
And apparently there were a few named people in the Bible named Gaius. But from what I saw after like 2 minutes, like when I say simple, it was like I clicked on two things because I was still watching the episode, like that kind of simple.
Uh-huh.
But this person in the show, guys, does not seem to be somebody pulled directly,
Yeah.
a named person from the Bible. But I was talking to my wife after watching episode 2, because in episode 2 we see more of him, of the wheels turning with him. And it makes me wonder if maybe this is going to be my bold prediction. So this is something we do on Showboys and Companion Series. We throw out bold predictions for the season, or like a series prediction. I don't know if it'll happen this season, but what if Gaius is the Roman soldier whose daughter dies and comes to Jesus and asks her to be resurrected?
Yeah, I thought of that. Because there are different centurions, right?
Mhm.
Did they name them like that, or did they actually? I can't remember if they actually name them.
In because I think that like I've started reading Matthew again, got like very close to the end, and then got a new Bible. Actually, shout out, got a spirit-filled study Bible, which is the first study Bible I've ever had in my life, and it's like amazing.
Yeah,
If you've
that's
never read a study Bible, like you should get one because it will change your life. So after I got the study Bible, I was like, well, let's go back and start Matthew again so we can get all this extra commentary and notes and stuff. So I believe that story is in Matthew, and I don't think that person is named in scripture, but I believe it's a Roman centurion in scripture. I'd have to
yeah.
double check if it says centurion or soldier or just Roman.
Mhm.
Was that what you were asking?
Yeah, I
Okay.
couldn't remember if they refer to it because there's a few. I think within actually there might be actually something in Acts too. I can't remember. I'm for some reason it all seems blurry right this second, but
Probably nothing to do with you getting
well,
home at 2:30, right?
no, but the I mean the law of probability is going to say that like you're you're basically intersecting, Roman soldiers, Roman citizens with Jewish, um, the Jewish culture.
Yeah.
Or, well, yeah, this at this point it would have been Jewish, not Israelite, but yeah, so Jewish culture, and so it's like it. You're going to have that intersection, and you're going to have, people that believe, just as you have Jewish people that do not believe, and that Jewish people that do believe. I mean, that's
Mhm.
and so like I don't see it. I feel like it's probably happened a lot more. So even if this was not, um, I guess where I'm going with this is even if this is not that Roman that you're referring to, I
Mhm.
mean, I feel like this is very highly probable of a character plot of somebody that was there,
Yeah, yeah.
experiences it, and transforms, from just seeing it.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, even now you have heavy atheists that transform from that certain element of I don't know, some sort of inspiration that they're feeling of sort of something that with this. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
just so it's like I think it's highly probable. So yeah, it probably happened a lot more often than we even think. You know,
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's all.
No, that's good. Do you have any thoughts on Gaius becoming a a bigger story from the Bible, or are you just thinking he's just gonna be like what you just described?
I don't know. Um, I honestly I don't know if I'm buying it that he's gonna be that one that you're predicting. So I don't know if I'm with you on that.
That's fine. That's fine. It's a bold
No, no,
prediction.
it is. It is. And so I don't know. I don't know though. I don't know what they're trying to do with his character development. And maybe it is just one of those. Maybe it is what you're predicting. Maybe it is just somebody that they're trying to, kind of fall in line with what I was saying, that like you have these you're it's going to intersect no matter what
Mhm.
you do. You take two cultures and you put them into one space and they're there. Like this is what's going to happen. There's
Yeah,
going
for
to
sure.
be interchanging, just as the Jewish people probably brought on a lot of the Roman characteristics. And actually, there's a lot
Well, like you see it
in
with Matthew in the
uh-huh.
show, he like adopted a somewhat Roman lifestyle for
Yeah,
so
and
it's
it's
not
been a long time since I've read Romans too, but, like, even after, like, you see, you know, speaking to the Roman people, speaking to this, and so, like, he's speaking to Jewish people within the Roman culture, so it's like
Mhm.
you're there's going to be an intermingling of cultures no matter what when you put them in two cultures in one spot, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Um, so yeah, And like this isn't like a melting pot like kind of United States is. This is literally two main cultures, major cultures that are intermingling. Like, you know what I mean? Obviously, there's inspirations from Greek and all the different, but
Yeah.
like, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, no, it's, I don't know. I think it might just be one of their kind of like a third party to it all, nothing specific, but like a character that they wanted to develop to kind of give more context to the
Mhm.
cultures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's
That's my prediction.
probably way more accurate than my wild one. But I'm throwing that out there,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
we'll
no.
see what happens. That's
Sometimes you
gonna be
just
my
gotta, throw out some bold ones.
Yep.
But yeah.
You wanna walk
So
us through the calling of
I mean,
Judas?
yeah, I don't really, I don't feel the need to like walk one by one with it, but like he sits down and it's I can't remember what he said. Let's see here. He kind of comes Judas. See what's different about this was that every other one, Jesus in some ways sought them out.
Yeah.
And what's different here is that it seems that Judas is seeking him out. And there's you can tell so first off, my wife, we were on vacation and she's read a comment on The Chosen and she saw that somebody said on Dallas Jenkins that he needs to repent um because because for basically developing Judas's character in like in I can't remember what the comment, but like almost like in a sympathetic light, like
Yeah. Well,
which
yeah,
is
I mean, Judas
re
was a person and, like, was
yeah.
a vital role in the fulfillment of what
Yeah.
was
And
supposed to happen.
and it's the most ridiculous comment I've ever heard in my life, first off. Um,
Yeah.
because well, I don't know, man, like they have to develop him. I mean, and you know what? It was no matter what, do you think like he came on and it was just a constant like all right, there's right here we see Jesus calling him, right? Judas pursues Jesus, Jesus calls him, and it is a weird kind of interaction. You could tell Jesus is kind of
Yeah.
like, all right, follow me, buddy, like I
Yeah,
know
yeah,
what's,
yeah.
and but everyone else, they don't see that. And
Right.
and Jesus doesn't make that clear to anyone, especially in these. Like they're like, he's like, "Hey, welcome, Judas," and
Yeah.
and so like I think it's almost like it's almost naive of us to kind of just even think that it was anything different. That
Right.
like he wasn't perceived as a normal disciple, just as Simon Z was, and Simon, Peter,
Yeah.
and all of them. Apparently, I couldn't think of any disciples right there. But
Just
like,
throw out the Simons and the
yeah,
James. You got 4 of the group, so you're good.
exactly. No, but like it's going to seem normal and they're all going to just have those normal bickering and kind of like
Yeah.
struggles that a new group would have in this type of thing. So I don't know. I think it's like when to that person that made that comment, like just stop.
Right.
Just
And
stop because this
I'm
is
gonna continue my bold statements. Here's two in a row for you guys.
yeah.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say Judas probably wasn't a terrible person all the
Mhm.
time. I think um in an extreme way, obviously, he he backslid like all of us do in our journey following Christ.
Mhm.
Backslid into his old ways. It's just his moment uh is responsible for,
Yeah.
the crucifixion of Jesus, which is
Well,
admittedly massive, but also needed to happen. But like I don't think I don't think Judas is just like an inherently evil person all the time. Like he did one terrible thing, but like I don't know. He had to be like a normal person just like the rest of them, right? Or am I like way off base here?
no, you're absolutely right. And so So I love this envisioning of this. So I don't know if any of the listeners or you have ever looked at Dante's Inferno. It is like it's an
Mhm.
old comedy, and the point of it is to see like the levels of evil in the world, you know, and so really what it is like basically it's calling it different layers of hell,
Mhm.
right? And the deeper you get into it, the more um I don't know, malevolent, more evil you are. And so,
Mhm.
you know, you have your regular sins, you know, that you're following. You can kind of categorize these sins in these different levels. And at the very bottom, he portrays betrayal as like the deep, like the, the most evil of them
Mhm.
all. And so, and that's where, you know, any of those layers of hell, you know, I think what he's trying to portray is like you're putting yourself into this hell when you're
Mhm.
doing these, or the people around you. And so all these people you see, like Mary and different people like Struggle Simon, Matthew, they've all hit these levels of hell, of these evils, right? I mean, and
Mhm.
that's what we're really kind of portraying sin as. But Judas, he, you know, still he did like the worst, you know, which is
Yeah.
like betrayal. And it seems to be like you said, he slid, and it just kind of, it's more of like a landslide at that point he created,
Yeah.
and there's no going back from it. And I think that's
Yeah.
the, you know, and my wife and I have talked about it, and like, you know, people, you know, you can write all you want on my wall, I don't really care, but repent, whatever you need. But like,
Yeah.
I'm not 100% convinced that Judas doesn't make it to whatever you want to call heaven, or you know, after. And you know, I think it's crazy for us to even like play that role to say
Mhm.
who's there or not, or who will be there, or whatever you want to say, if it's something in the future, if it's something, you know, a new heaven, a new whatever.
Right.
But I mean, I just I don't know. I have so much I'm so
Man, we could
intrigued.
talk so
No, we
long
can,
about that
about
last
this
thing you
because
said.
yeah. Oh, yeah, we could. No, it, but
Because,
I'm
like,
so
man, that
going.
just opens up, like, okay, so obviously, like, he accepted Jesus for who he was, right?
Mhm.
And that is what that's I mean, accepting Christ
It's the number
is
one, right? Yeah,
salvation,
it's the
right?
number. Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Uh, and then it brings up, like, okay, so is, like, predestination a thing? Like, was he predestined to do
Yeah,
this?
exactly.
Sure.
That's the big
But,
argument
like,
there.
does that mean he was predestined to go to hell? Would God predestine people to go to hell? Or does he want everyone to be with him in heaven? So it's like, man, that just opens up, like, a
Oh, there's so many
massive
rabbit
thing that would
holes.
be so
But
fun to talk about.
that's exactly, and that's when I look at that and I look at that comment, I think in my head, I'm like, man, that's a very unthought like you didn't put too much thought into it, because it's so much deeper than that. Like you just said, like, how can you be all these things at once and then like have this idea that like you're just going to simplify it and generalize it to this like you're
Yeah.
not allowed to, you should repent because you're not allowed to sympathize with this guy,
Yeah, yeah.
or even like put your, you know, empathize, anything. Like I just, it's crazy to me because it's like, dude, he's like, he was called by Jesus regardless of whatever we call it. He was
Yeah.
called by him. He, you know, and he suffered for it too. And that's the thing that I think we're missing. Like I think sometimes when you look at it, like I don't know, I guess we're probably jumping around like 4 seasons here, but like, you know, the fact of the matter is he didn't he committed suicide. He hung himself. He was probably distraught. It's like one of those things. Like he paid for it in some regard, right? Like, I mean, do you agree with that or?
Mhm.
Okay,
I
cool.
was, mid-drink, but to those audio listeners, I was shaking my
Yes.
head yes.
But yeah, no. So I don't know. I just I guess that's a sidebar here and a side rant, a
Yeah.
tangent here. But like, I just I I'm really intrigued to see how they develop this, because it's not an easy thing to do,
Yeah, for
and
sure.
it's not. And already day one, people are
Right.
already calling for calling for Dallas Jenkins' head.
Well, I mean, they've been
Spike,
doing
like
that
it's
the whole time, but yeah, it's just going to be elevated for sure.
dude,
I will say, I don't know if it was just me like
Mhm.
watching it, but like a lot of I don't even want to say a lot. I want to say every interaction between Judas and Jesus felt so tense to me. But like, I don't know if it was just me because like I know who these people are, right? But like, or is that something that you think was just across the board and intentional?
No, but no, I think it was across the board intentional, and it was like an awkward, that awkward, like you're forced to have small talk. And you know what I mean? And I know
Oh, I
you're
can
introverted
relate
like me,
so
so yeah.
hard
And
to that.
and and so I would say, yeah, no, it's just this like it seems forced, like
Yeah.
there's tension, but it seems like forced. And I really think it has something to do with I really like how they had him pursue
Mhm.
Jesus, you know, like it's I don't know, something different. I like what they did with it. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean,
Uh,
regardless of the show, they had to bring him on eventually. Like he's a
right?
pretty key character in the
Yeah,
plot,
you kind of need them.
like so.
But yeah, so that happens. And then the group gets together. They pray. Jesus is like, "Hey, you know, head back to town. Uh, take some time off. Took a took a lot to get this sermon out there. You guys could probably use some rest. I'm inserting my own thoughts in there, but that's kind of the vibe I was picking up. But after the group kind of disbands, we have a Joanna coming up to the group, and she brings news of our favorite camel hair bug eating friend John the Baptist. She is from her husband, I believe, if I'm getting this right, her husband works in Herod's court, so she has access to John and has been talking with him. He sent her here, and she tells Andrew and Jesus, and Andrew gets the okay to go see John. And I cannot wait to talk about that interaction. That was good.
Yeah, so we got a new character.
Do you think she's here to stay, gonna play a big role, or is that just kind of the mediator of John until John meets his fate?
I mean, I think she's going to be here to stay. She's clearly rich too. Like she's
Agreed.
high class, and so I think sometimes too, like I like what they're doing here because maybe this is my own interpretation of this, but like, you know, he still did have a ministry, man. He still needed to, he didn't do carpentry anymore. He didn't do these things that, like,
Mhm.
you get these stories of like Paul later, and it's like he was making tents, and I think tents and selling them and doing, and like he was kind of making his own way. Like Jesus, I mean, we saw him make a couple wood pieces, but like he doesn't, you know, have a lot of money. So I feel
Right.
like people like this, like there were clearly people supporting his ministry in a
Mhm.
financial, giving him the financial means to do this type of thing. So I don't know. I think she might stay on, maybe not as a primary character, but like influencing things in some capacity.
Right. Yeah, because she does give the group like a cloth fabric of some sort, and
Correct.
they all kind of when they see it, they're like, "Oh my
It's from
gosh!" Like,
Nepal.
yeah, it's a very expensive
Nepal.
fabric here. That's all right. I knew what you're talking about.
Okay. I actually don't know
So,
which one it is, so just take a guess.
um, I also want to talk about this. The next part here in the scene is an interaction with Thomas and Rama, and let's get all the like
The teenage angst
the
stuff.
rom-com stuff done
Right.
here in this segment. We can cover it for both episodes here, or we can just do this one. Let's just do this one. I have mixed feelings about the introduction of like romance into this show, and I'll explain. Because it would be weird if I didn't, and I just ended that point right there. First, I think okay, I'll just start out why I don't like it. I don't like it because I feel like it kind of takes away from like the main point, but also in the same breath, the story, the viewpoint, the vantage point we get in the show is from the disciples. So at the same time, it kind of is needed because I was, again, another conversation I had with my wife. Like, oftentimes reading the Bible, I forget that the disciples were just regular people like me and you. Like, Jesus was and is the only perfect being ever, right? But like all of his followers, all of his disciples, were just a bunch of random schmucks. Like, they loved people. They, in Simon Peter's case, were married. Like, that did it in scripture does it ever reference Peter being married and having a family? Like, did these people have families? Maybe.
I'm pretty
Probably.
sure
They were just
I'm pretty
regular
sure they
dudes.
reference Peter being married.
But like, so like that is totally logical, right? Like Thomas liking Rama, sure, that would probably most likely happen. Like the other thing that happens in episode 2, I think Simon, the Peter stuff is in episode 2, so I don't want to jump too far ahead. Like, yeah,
Peter's
probably,
mother-in-law, that's what it is. It says because
okay,
he
yeah, so
heals
he was
Peter's
married.
mother-in-law. So
Yeah, so like these
it's,
people are married, had
yeah, you're not
maybe
getting
had
named,
families,
but
like totally normal. But for some reason, like, I don't know, it just makes me feel weird. Like when they go to these Thomas and
well,
Rama scenes, or like
because I don't think they're well. I don't know.
the
They're
Peter thing, like it's just like I was just like, oh, this is like weird.
all right. The reason why the Peter thing. Oh, like with him and his
Episode 2.
yeah.
We'll talk about that
Look,
later.
I think that was more normal than I don't know. I mean,
Like I'm right on the fence, right?
well, because
I
I
don't
think what it is, it just seems out of place.
It's so out of place. That's
With
what
the
it is. You
culture.
nailed it. It's so does not
It's
fit with
like
everything else that's happening.
and it's the way that it's portrayed. And I think it's and honestly, I don't know. I can't figure it out though. I know what you're saying, and like when it happens, it almost seems a little cringy. And I'm like, I don't. So yeah, I don't know.
Especially like I just got to the part in the episode, because I have it. We both have it up on our other monitor while we're
Yeah.
talking about it, and I'm like skipping through that 15-second skip button. Oh, manna from heaven. It's great for doing these recaps, but I was skipping through and the conversation between Thomas and Rama behind the scene behind the stage just concluded, and we have Barnaby back there. He's just like just eavesdropping on the whole conversation, and he's like giving him the double fist pump, like, yeah, Thomas, you did it. You talked to that girl that you like. Yeah, it's just kind of
I don't know. Maybe though. I don't know. I feel like tradition isn't like married to like on your own accord. You know what I mean? It seems like it's very I don't know, maybe it was a little bit different here as opposed to like many of the Old Testament things that I'm thinking of. But like I feel like it's more of like a, I don't know.
It's still very much arranged, if that's what
yeah. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, because that they get into that in episode 2.
Like they literally, it's like teenage angst in that, like, just this kind of like
oh, does she? I like her. Does
Thomas
she like me?
is
I don't know.
giggling and she's giggling and it's just this,
Yeah.
So
No, you hang up.
And then even on it goes to all three of them in why can't I think of her name?
Mary's house.
Yeah, well no, but
Tamar.
Tamar, yes. So yeah, just them. They're doing it, and they're
Oh
typical.
yeah,
But
that is in
no,
this episode, isn't
you
it?
know, I like that she put
Oh
that they're
no,
on the
that's
fence.
the next
It,
episode.
it
But yeah,
is.
yeah.
No, it's in this episode, and they're talking about it. And
Hmm.
so, but you're absolutely right with being on the fence because you want to say that, but like I think it's I don't know. I don't think it's I think it's too it might be naive of us to think that they weren't thinking
Right.
this type
No,
of
and
way,
they probably were
and
most likely, right?
it falls in line with how I used to think like, people of like ancient, growing up, I'd think of this ancient cultures as like, for lack of better words, like primitive, like they're primitive, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? And in some capacity they are, but like, you know, they're not like cavemen walking around like
Well,
like
dude, I'll do
that's
you
not
one
it's a
better. So my day job, well, this isn't even a job. Maybe someday. Um, my job, I research land for oil and gas companies.
uh,
So what that entails, I get a piece of property. I take the deeds, all the sales of this land all the way back. Like nowadays it's not as far back, but when I first started and I was doing like full title research, like I would figure out the ownership for a particular piece of land all the way back to 1850, which
oh
is quite a few years away from present day. We're in 2022, about to be 2023. Hey, but I would read deeds from like 1880, right, or like 1902,
uh,
and be like, man, it's so wild that they were like drilling for oil and gas back then. That's nuts. They probably like were they just riding around on like horses back then or whatever? But then I like look at pictures and I'm like, oh no, they had like machines and like trains and
yeah,
like
well,
so like yeah, I totally relate with what you're saying because like I that literally every day at my job that
yeah, I mean,
happens.
think about it, even like how they built geez, the like the temple. Look at these rocks. They're like the
Mhm.
way that they're cut and the way that they're like,
Yeah.
ancient pyramids with Egypt. Like, I mean, well, not even just Egypt, all Mayans, just all these
Yeah.
different civilizations.
Any of those huge
They're not.
structures, it's like
It's just
crazy.
what we call ancient does not mean that they have that like they're walking around scratching their head with a rock in their hand and a club in the like that's
Yeah.
just not it's just not
Yeah.
accurate and
It's just a
so
long time ago, that's all. I mean, they knew what was up,
yeah, I mean think about it. These are the civilizations that like invented the basics of math that you're thinking of or
right?
trigonometry, geometry, and writing and like it's just I don't know. So I think it's very easy to fall into that, and so like where I was going with this is that it's very easy to look into this culture and say like from this like narrow like this
Mm.
lens of saying like okay they're arranged marriages so they don't feel feelings they don't feel
Yeah, yeah.
love and excitement and jitteriness. What did I just say? Jitterish?
It
Um
works.
yeah, that's
Just
a word.
I've learned
Um
just say it with
yeah, no,
confidence and a lot
absolutely.
of people will believe you.
Yes. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that jitterish feeling that you
Mhm,
get when
mhm.
when you meet somebody new, the butterflies, the whatever. And so like I think it's very I actually kind of like it. Now that we've really wrestled that, I'm like, no, it's still pretty cringy conversation,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
whatever. But yeah, so we'll see where their relationship goes and
Yeah.
will they get married? Do. I don't know.
We'll never
But
know. We'll
but yeah,
never know.
so to jump around, I would kind of jumped around here. We got a lot to still unpack with this episode. It's a long episode. It's an
Yeah,
hour long.
I mean, I know how much you love this, but, it's
Oh,
time.
come on, dude.
It's on loop, so that's awkward, when it keeps playing that sound. No, this one's not bad because Shmuel's not here. We
Yeah.
don't have Nathaniel and Yanni.
Yeah, it's Yusuf.
We got Yusuf.
And
I'm interested in to see what is going on with Yusuf. He, like we mentioned earlier, impacted by the sermon. In what
Mhm.
ways? We will soon find out, I'm sure. But we see him like writing away furiously at his desk. And he goes to, I don't know, refill his ink, and there's like a new cleric, office worker.
Jairus.
Yes. And he's a shady fella, let me tell you. Speaking in all these cryptic ways, like, oh yes, I'm usually on special assignments for like crazy things, and I travel a lot and get transferred all the time. It's just like, whoa, dude, just like tone down the like weird, like, I don't know, shady vibes you're
Yeah.
casting here. But basically he's like, you know, asking what Yusuf's writing about, and he's like, oh, I heard this sermon from that Jesus guy, like it was something. And he's like, well, before you send that whatever you're writing anywhere, maybe you should
You should
leave it with me.
maybe put it in the safe until
Yes.
you think about what you're writing.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah,
What do you think about this?
I don't know. I don't really have too many thoughts on it because I'm just kind of like okay. Like I have no read on him
Yeah.
yet at this point of
Yusuf or the creepy
the creepy
little
guy.
keeper
Yusuf,
here?
I think things are stirring. Something is, and he doesn't know.
Yeah, because
He
at
doesn't
the
seem to
end of
understand
season
it.
2, he's helping out,
Yeah.
the disciples, and now we got this here.
I think
So
even I can't remember what they referenced, but it was kind of like he's just kind of like, no, I don't believe this, but like I there's something like I don't know. I can't
yeah,
remember exactly how it played out, but yeah, no, there's something going on in him.
Mhm.
And I can't tell. Yeah, I don't know what this other dude is though. I don't understand it. It was one of those things I kind of like my mind tried to wrestle with it for a moment, and I'm like, I don't know about you, man. I just don't. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and at the end, we're just kind of summing up Yusuf's little arc here in this episode. Basically, he finishes writing his thing, hands it to creepy dude, and he's like, "Let's, put this in the vault, and let it cool off." And the guy's like, "Okay, no one's gonna see this except for me and you. By the way, you didn't seal this, man." He's like, "Yeah, whatever." And Yusuf leaves, and it zooms in on the scroll, and of course we can't read it because we can't read like Hebrew or whatever they wrote in back then. Was it? Did they write? What did they write in? I don't know.
At
Probably sound
this
really
point,
dumb
it
right
was
now.
probably Greek.
We can't read Greek, so the nice little transcription captions on the bottom of the screen says
Actually, I don't know.
to Nicodemus, important. So
Maybe it was Hebrew.
whatever Yusuf, was writing and thinking of this sermon, like he wanted to get it to Nicodemus, which I find very interesting. So now I'm even more intrigued. Like, what did he think? What did he write? What's Nicodemus like? What does he have to know? And now I'm wondering if he's even going to get it because it's in Jairus's hands, and I don't like his hands.
No. Nope. So I don't know. Who knows how that'll play out?
Yeah. Where do we
so-
go next here?
I mean, you got the love scene between very angry Simon when
Nathaniel,
shows up.
which I thought was hilarious. And then I
Yeah, that
thought
was
was even funnier when he finally gets Nathaniel like on his way. Who shows up? Simon Z.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was a fun
Classic biblical rom-com moment, Couldn't live without it, I guess. Or he could. I don't know. I could live without it, I guess.
Doesn't change much, but so that's where we get there. Pretty much Simon Z and Nathaniel are staying at the Peter house, I don't know. I can't. I was trying to think.
Yeah,
Right.
right. And the next several minutes we just get like the group dispersing and basically finding out who their roommates are going to be, because apparently everyone's shocked at who their roommates are going to be. So next we have Big John James. Big John, super relatable for me in this episode, because all he's thinking about is food like this entire time. Just wants to get home, eat some cinnamon cakes.
Big John, you mean Little James?
Big James.
Big
My
James, I
bad.
mean.
Big James. They find out Thomas is going to be room with him. You know, Big James is a little bummed. That happens. You know, get some funny moments here with Zebedee and the fam. Then we go to Mary, who is now rooming with Tamar and Rama. You know, they have their conversation of worry about not having money and all that stuff. Matthew comes in here, and we have he's confused. You know, we're kind of alluding to what we saw in the beginning of the episode, because he doesn't know where to go. He gave his parents his home, and he can't go to his parents. He doesn't want his old home. He can't go to his parents because he's disowned. So he's not quite sure what to do. And he just kind of like, in Matthew's own way, just like spills to Mary. And he's just like, well, I guess I could just go make camp. I learned how to do that. And so, yeah, thanks for listening, pretty much.
Yeah.
What'd you think about what happened here with Mary and Matthew?
I liked it. I mean, it's like one of those things. It's an awkward conversation because of just Matthew, but Matthew's struggling, man, and it's good. It's a good struggle. It's like he is wrestling with. He's wrestling with what Mary wrestled with. How do I go? You know, maybe not the same thing, but like he can easily go back, stay at his big place. He can easily go, live this life that he had. Maybe not the same where you're tax collecting and this and that, but like, he could have easily gone back to this, and he's like refusing because he's different, and he knows that, and he doesn't want to jeopardize that. And because I think transformation, we all are different, but we can still act the same. And that's a very, I think there's a distinct difference there. And I think that's where we struggle too, is when we struggle in with something sinful or whatever, it's hard to jump back to that. Like, it's hard to come back from that sometimes, because you think that now you're still not transformed, and you may have not be full. You get what I'm saying? Like, you stumbled on something. It doesn't mean that you were who you were. It means that for a moment you thought that way, and that's, you know what I mean? Or something along those lines. Does that make sense? So he's struggling with it, clearly struggling with going back towards it. And he doesn't even want to try to stumble. He doesn't even want to, he's, and he's still wrestling with clearly the making good with your brothers, right? And you can't go give your sacrifice at the altar. You can't do these different things. You can't do them truly with a vengeful or a whatever heart, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so he's struggling with that. So I like that I like the scene. Is that you? What'd you think about it?
Yeah, no, you summed it up really good. And while we're talking about the reconciliation thing, I want to save the scene with Andrew and John in the prison to end the episode here, because there's a lot there. But on the reconciliation thing, Andrew goes to Mary, of course, after the prison scene, and apologizes for the things that he said, way back several episodes ago, which, you can see that Jesus's words were, weighing on people. I mean, the whole group, but, in this episode in particular, Andrew and Matthew. So Andrew goes, reconciles with Mary. That was a really good scene there. Matthew then in this episode he approaches his parents' house. Like he goes, notices his dog that he left is still there, which was kind of cool, a little touch. But you know, the dog's barking. He's kind of like making up his mind whether or not he wants to actually knock or like if he can actually do this. And it doesn't matter because the dog was making so much noise that his father opens the door and calls Matthew son. And then Matthew looks and then cut episode. Really cool way to end the episode for sure. And it was really cool after the beginning of the episode to hear Matthew's dad call him son. Really cool. And that leads into a really cool beginning of episode 2. But do you have do you want to say anything about those two?
No, I think we'll jump into that when we talk about it in episode 2. But like, yeah, no, I thought that was good. It was a tearjerker right there. You know, I mean, you gotta love redemption. You gotta love that type of thing. And then so, I mean, that's a pretty big baseline of the gospel, right? And so, yeah, no, I really liked it. I just thought it was such a good scene. I mean, it was simple, right? You know, he was going to reconcile. He was going to, you know, we'll get into it. You know, I don't even want to because it's a deeper scene, right? And so I don't want to just like jump into that. It's very straightforward right now. What we've experienced is he said Alphaeus, and he said son, and you could see it in his face too when he saw Matthew.
The shock.
It's different. Yeah. It's different than all the other scenes you saw with his dad. So no, that was good, and we'll jump into that here shortly.
So Andrew goes and visits John. Also, I apologize. I'm committing a cardinal sin right now in recording anything. My throat is so dry because of this cough that I put a cough drop in my mouth. So I apologize. But like water is just not solving the problem right now.
Yeah, I know. I made tea because I'm in the same boat as you. And now my tea is nice and cold.
Perfect.
So yeah,
first out, like, what did you think about this scene between John and Andrew?
Well, real quick, I think we kind of glazed over it. How Andrew got here is he was tweaking, and when he found out that Joanna like would bring, and he's like, I have to go, and she's and so he goes.
That was an amazing way to describe Andrew. By the way, he was like perfect,
just spazzing. Like I am, and so I don't know with this scene. I want to hear your thoughts on it first because you're very like excited about it.
Yeah, and it's just
so what made this scene so special to you? Because it seems like a special scene.
It's like so the main crux without like going through line by line dialogue here. Andrew is Andrew. So like anxious, worried, afraid, very concerned for John, right? As any normal person would be if someone they knew was arrested and being detained by like a tyrant, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
John, who's been locked up, right? And for who knows how long, I mean, like, who knows how long he will be in there, right? He doesn't know. Nobody really knows. Is like the complete inverse of Andrew, right? Not a care in the world. He's just excited and happy to hear about Jesus's sermon, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like Andrew's asking him, like, "Are you okay?" He's like, "Yeah, whatever. What did Jesus do? What's new?" Like, Joanna's there. Of course, she's the one who's able to get Andrew into the prison to talk with John. But they just go through the sermon. I love their recaps where it's like everything he said was just backwards. Like, love your enemies, everything that you can think of, we just do the opposite. And John's like, oh, yep, that sounds like Jesus. But just the fact that John is just so concerned about what Jesus is doing now, and that is like his hope and his joy. It's like, I don't know, just very inspiring, right? It's the perfect example of not letting your circumstances define you, and just placing your hope in Jesus. Because in John's mind, like, he's going to get out of here and he's going to get to go and be a part of what Jesus is doing, right? He doesn't know his fate. But like, it's just everything that they tell him about the sermon, it's just like, he just gets more and more excited. Like, how many people were there? Hundreds? No, thousands. And he's like doing the Tiger Woods fist pump. He's like, yes, wonderful. That's amazing. What else? And Andrew finally asks, like, John, what can we do for you? Like, how can I help you? And John's just like, help? What are you talking about? Like, you're helping me by what you're telling me. Like, you want to help me? Go home and follow Jesus. Like, go home and do what he's telling you to do. Go home and be a part of what the Messiah is doing. Like, I don't matter. This circumstance doesn't matter. Like, be a part of Jesus. Be a part of the movement, right? I don't know. It was really cool. Really, really cool to see. What'd you think?
Yeah, I thought similar things. With John, the way that he's portrayed in this show, I don't know if he is. I don't know if he's fully content, or if he is like, look, it's not a mystery that John dies, and he's not, that he's beheaded by King Herod, right?
Spoiler alert. Jeez.
Well,
No, I'm just
it's
kidding.
eventually, it happens. And what I think that we don't know is when it's going to happen. When is it now? Is it then? Does he get out of jail and he's back in jail? I have a pretty strong inclination that he's probably not going to be leaving the cell, or if he does leave the cell, it's for, not for freedom, right? That's just my guess here. But like,
Yeah.
I don't know if he believes that. And I'm not saying that the real John the Baptist didn't. I just don't know if this portrayed John the Baptist believes that he. How am I wording? I think I'm wording this wrong. I don't know if he fully expects to get out at some point. Like you said, kind of alluded to there, or even I think outright said that he's going to come and follow. He's like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm here right now.
Yeah.
He's there. You follow him. I'll be there in a little bit. You know what I mean? Is it that type of perspective, or is he fully content knowing that like he may never leave this cell? And it reminds me of Paul. Paul did that. Paul wrote about that in the cell of I think a Roman cell, like saying like, I'm actually locked up right now, but I'm actually more free than I've ever been, in this cell, locked up. And so I think what I portrayed from Paul at that point is he was okay with dying. He's free. He's so okay. And I don't know if I think he is. I think I mean, what do you think what do you think on that? Like, do you think he's like, do you think he's fully content, John the Baptist? Is he fully content with where he is and that he can die right then and there and be completely fine?
I think it's a combination of both. Okay, I had to check, make sure my mic wasn't muted because I was muting a lot there. No, I think it's a combination of both. Like, I think he is content and at any moment is okay to die. But I also think, like, because I think he even says a line in there where he's gonna like be with them soon. Like, I think he thinks what he did isn't as serious as what it turned out to be. So in his mind, I think he expects that he's going to be walking out of that cell at some point.
Yeah,
But on the other hand, I think also like if he didn't,
he'd be
he's
okay.
okay. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
as we were kind of talking through that, I think just a brave soldier came to mind. Like they're not necessarily afraid to die, but they don't expect that's what's
Right.
going to be the outcome. They're going to live and act as though they are not going to be. And so
Right.
maybe that's what it is. Maybe that is the mindset that he seems to have, because every time I think I see him, like every time, or at least what he says and how he's interacting, it almost seems as though he's fully expecting to be okay and right there with the person that he can finally strap their sandals.
Right.
Like,
Right. Yeah.
so yeah, I don't know. That's really all I got to say about that.
Yeah, it was good. And that's episode 1. I mean, we left out the part where Judas meets with his sister, gives him his deed to his house, and is like, "Hey, I'm going to follow Jesus." Like, I think there's a lot of funny. I mean, tongue in cheek's a bad way to describe it, but a lot of ironic lines that Judas has about like wanting to be a part of history and like like do all these important things, and it's like, man, if you only knew. If
No,
you
but it is. But that's another thing that it's like there's this self-righteousness that he has to him. Like it's not selflessness.
Yeah, I
You know
see
what I
what you're
mean? And
saying. Yeah.
it's like I picked up on that too when I was like, man, he just and it kind of fell in line with me noticing that he is pursuing Jesus.
Right.
And not in the
Yeah.
same way that we pursue Jesus, but like for his own glory. And I think that is what one of his uh weaknesses, like it's not an easy thing too. Like we can easily look at him and see like, oh, you're out for yourself. Who isn't? I mean, to
Right.
some capacity, like, I mean, if we act, especially in America here where we're filling up our house and I got vinyl pops over there and I got this and that, and like we're filling up
Don't look.
our
Don't
yeah, right. No, not only and it's a hard balance. So it's hard to be like, how do I build something, a legacy, without understanding that like moths are going to come and destroy this, and it's not an easy mindset. I mean, I don't care wherever you're at, like, but I also think it's it might not be, we're not all, I don't think, called to just go sleep on the street, and so there's a line of like, I don't, it's always going to be like a struggle, but he seems to really struggle with that legacy thing.
Right. And yeah, it's there's like a line between like wanting to follow and like because of who you're following. Like the other disciples are like enamored by the fact that this is the Messiah, and like at the same time what that means for people. Like they don't care so much that they're involved in this like massive history changing thing. They're just
Yeah.
like, holy crap, it's the Messiah. What does that mean? Like our people are going to be free. Whereas Judas is like, holy crap, it's the Messiah. I can be a part of like this crazy like history changing movement.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like exactly like what you're saying, but I didn't even really pick up on that until you brought it up. So.
And he seems so nearsighted. And I'm not even basing this on the show. I'm basing this on scripture. And the fact that like he so quickly turned him over for 40 pieces of silver, right? Is that what the number is?
Yeah.
And then so quick to throw it back at, didn't he throw it back at like, it's like this nearsightedness, like he can't even see past his own nose. You know what I mean? It's just like, I don't know, but yeah. Awesome. So that concludes episode 1, right?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. So then
yeah.
we're gonna jump right
Get right
here
into
into
episode
episode 2. Awesome. So
Um,
I'm James. This is Mike.
welcome back. In case you haven't listened to the other so many episodes or the last one or this one.
If you're listening on my platform, I'm gonna split this into 2. And so this is your next one, and you'll be, so hi.
Yeah.
It's been a week.
Time travel.
Oh man.
Oh geez. Yeah, so episode 2 here. I didn't even read the episode description for episode 1, but this is episode 2 now. So real quick. The disciples continue to wrestle with Jesus' teaching on the Mount. Jesus gives them their next mission. You'll notice episode descriptions much shorter this season because I'm pulling them off IMDb and not the wiki page. But yeah, so of course this episode picks up right where episode 1 left off. We're still, I don't know if it's the day after, but very, very close to the Sermon on the Mount here. Episode starts off with a vagabond like tent city popping up outside of the district here, and it's Gaius and Atticus overlooking these new pilgrims, they call them. Gaius still kind of zoning out, and kind of wondering what to do here. And Atticus is like, look, man, we kind of got to tell Quintus. Like it's that time. So
Yeah.
we just go basically let's just cover do you want to go by character or do you just want to go how the episode goes? Because we've done it both ways.
Yeah, let's mix it up. Let's just go by character.
Okay, so let's stick with Gaius and Atticus here. So we next see Gaius and Atticus as they go to meet with Quintus. You kind of want
he's yelling at
yeah. You want to
like,
take us through this
he's
one
he's basically like, if I have poop water one more time, your head is coming off of your shoulders. That's essentially fix the water is what he says. But basically, I mean, Rome is very, known by having aqueducts and moving water and and so clearly there is a issue in paradise here with the outflow and the inflow, right, mixing together. so
yeah, I don't care if you're Roman, Jewish, the hero or the villain. No one likes to drink poop water.
No.
So let's get that out there. I love how he's like yelling at the guy who brought him the water. He's like tells him that he needs to fix it or he's gonna kill him, like drown him in the poop water. And he's like sitting there and he's like, does brown water make you deaf? Like go
yeah, he's
as comically like villainous that they portray Quintus to be.
Mm-hmm.
Some of his one-liners, like, they get me. Like, that was a good one.
Yeah. So yeah, no, that's where he's telling. So they're telling him, camp is sprung up, and so send him away. How does that actually? I don't remember how this.
Basically,
I can't remember how this conversation ended.
Yep, pretty much. They tell him about the tent city, and Quintus is like, "Well, get rid of him." And Atticus is like, "Well, Caesar doesn't really like us being, too forceful with our citizens, so maybe don't beat everyone if they don't leave."
Yeah, maybe tax them.
Yeah, why don't you turn these people into some revenue? Redraw your city boundaries. You can tax these people.
Yeah.
So Quintus has a brilliant idea, of course, that was not given to him by Atticus or anything, to redraw the city boundaries and tax these people.
So that's what's happening. And so
yeah, we get a few funny Hail Caesars, which I liked. But we also get news here that Atticus is going to be heading to Jerusalem to speak with one Pilate, which, ooh, Pilate.
Yeah, I guess that's the villain that we haven't.
Haven't quite met him yet.
Yeah, I'm interested. That's a good point. We're gonna.
I do love how Quintus like gets mad at guys for not telling him about the sermon, and Atticus is like, okay, and now he's building a hut, and now he's going to the bathroom. Like, we can't literally tell you every single thing this dude does. Like, we're two people. We're not there all the time.
You know what I like about this too? It almost seems like it's like that video game when you get this like, I'm trying to think of a good example, but like so far we really haven't seen the top people of Rome, right? Like we haven't seen Caesar, we haven't seen Pontius Pilate, we haven't seen, and you see like Quintus, and Quintus is really like the
just
low
the
level
henchman.
person.
Yeah.
And then you find it's like the first 2 seasons has been this, and now it's like alluding to like the puzzle is so much bigger. It goes so much deeper. Actually, just now picking up on how well they actually did that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of a good example, and I know it's there, and I just can't think
It's
of.
like you're playing like Arkham Knight or something, right? And you're just going around beating up all the henchmen, and then all of a sudden, like, Mr. Freeze comes in. But, he's not like the main villain of the game. You're then introduced to like Dr. Hugo.
But then you realize there's this dude at the top that is like has been instructing each one of those the whole time. And so they did pretty well at that. I will say that I'm just now picking up on that. But
there is something here too that we shouldn't gloss over, because this kind of goes along with our point in episode 1.
What?
Quintus asks about the sermon, and Gaius is like, it just sounded like any other sermon. And Atticus, like, kind of, this is what's going on in my head. Atticus picks up what Gaius is putting down, and he's like, yeah, he just talks about like animal feet and like other Jewish things. Like, but they both kind of like, oh yeah, he says, he says, first he's like, I haven't heard that many sermons, but let's see. Something about lengthy instructions about animal hooves, something about reading from right to left, Jewish stuff. But like, at least Gaius was impacted in some way by the sermon.
Yeah.
We still have yet to discover how, but
he's
like
protecting it.
The fact that they're both downplaying the sermon, even though like Atticus alludes to later on in the episode in an interaction with Simon Z, that like the sermon wasn't really just, any old sermon of just, reading right to left and other Jewish stuff. So that's interesting. We'll just steal a phrase from one of our hosts on Showboys. You could just put a pin in that for later. Not this episode, but we'll see where that goes. But yeah, what happens next here after this?
With him, that he's walking around with one of his subordinates, I would say, and they're patrolling, and he's being harsh on them, and Gaius is like, stop. You need to. He seems just different, like, I don't know. Although Gaius never really seemed like he was bad.
Yeah, he was definitely like the most understanding Roman figure
soldier that he just.
But even with that, this thing that you're talking about is still different. A different side of Gaius.
It's like I don't know. I can't put my finger on it, but essentially just making sure he's being nice. I don't know, like
it's what happens. They're walking through the tent city, like you said, and the one Roman soldier is like, "Oh, are you drinking alcohol out here in the open? no public intoxication in this Roman city. And Quintus is like, seriously? Like, what are you gonna make him go inside of his tent and drink it and then come back out?
Fucking
Like,
drink it out. Like, just leave it alone, dude.
yeah, what difference does it
kidding.
make? Like, just drop it. Which is interesting because, like, we haven't seen him like give this leniency towards the Jewish people yet. I mean, we've seen what I like to call tender moments between Gaius and Matthew, like throughout the series, but this still is different. Like, you can see even as they're walking out of the tent city here, he's just like his mind is in another place.
Yeah, absolutely. So
And honestly, that just goes right into where we see Atticus next.
yeah, it really does. So we'll just kind of go into that. So Atticus is has followed Simon Z. You know, Simon Z is being followed. He's kind of tweaking out a little bit, rightfully so, because you know his order is probably
Not
under
to
the
get him.
order to
Yeah.
kill him. You know, so and actually, if I recall from this conversation, didn't he say like that wasn't just me following you, dude? Like they're here, like you know
Yeah.
that you are being followed by who you are fearful of being followed from. And
Yeah,
so-
because something we see earlier in the episode we haven't touched on yet. There's a scene where Nathaniel and Simon Z are walking through the tent city, and Simon is like, "Hey, they can't have fires this close." Like another, he pulls a Roman soldier, and he's like, "They can't have fires that close to canvas. It's against the rules."
yeah,
And Nathaniel's like, "Dude, just like, who cares?" And he's like, "I do, because if they draw Roman attention, that means Jesus has Roman attention. That's not good for anyone."
mhm.
But in this conversation, he goes, talks to the people, whatever. It's not a big deal. And they leave. As they're leaving, one of the people in the tent city, like, does the dramatic hamster turn and like, is following him with his eyes. And you see down, he puts his hand down on a dagger, which looks oddly familiar to the zealots. But I didn't really understand that until the scene with Atticus here on the roof. But
Yeah. So yeah, excuse me, I'm sorry.
dude, I
The struggles
feel your pain, bro. I do.
So yeah, I mean essentially at this point, Atticus Atticus? No. Yeah, what? He's just trying to understand why a zealot would throw their knife, right? Is that he's just trying to understand it. So I mean, what do you think of this scene? Is it just like a
Yeah, it's interesting because he follows him up on the roof because, like you said, Simon's noticing that he's being followed. So he tries to, it turns into like, the equivalent of a car chase in the, early Capernaum, right? So he's like parkouring up walls and he gets on a roof, thinks he's escaped, and wouldn't you know, Atticus is up there, and they have this few minute dialogue here where Atticus is questioning him, like, pretty much like, I know you were a zealot. Like, why are you a traitor? Why did you stop?
not
Like,
kill? Yeah.
like, something happened, and Simon Z is like, yeah, miracle. And he's like, yeah, if you say so, which I thought was, a funny, quippy Atticus comeback. Of course, Atticus would say that. Classic Atticus. But yeah, it's it's interesting because Atticus here, this is the scene I was talking about in the last episode or earlier on, where there's something about the sermon that has, and Jesus in a whole, that has Atticus thinking something.
Well, because you can't unsee that. You can't
Yeah.
unsee a zealot throwing a knife into a pot, or except I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Accepting
no, go
that
ahead.
and walking away.
Just
And
get it out,
then
man. Just get it out. I'm here
what,
for
the
you.
cough? No, no. You just can't unsee these types of things, and like it's clear, like change, right? He's clearly doing a complete 180 of where he was, and it's an unexpected 180. That's the thing. Is like you can't like you observe
Funny you
it
say that. That's the literal word that Atticus used. It just popped up on the screen.
180.
Like something unexpected happened.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, and so like it's an unexpected one. Like, you know, I feel like, even in science, anything you do, like you observe these things and like, you know, you have a certain expectation of how it's going to behave. And then when it doesn't behave that way, it's like, whoa,
Yeah.
like, I won't go into it now, but go read about electrons. They don't do what you expect them to do.
Yeah.
And
But yeah, it's like you said, like Atticus, and they're talking about the basically Simon's order, where
yeah.
he's like, I know you were coming here to kill a Roman magistrate, and Simon's like, well, that means you were watching us in the desert or whatever, and he's like, yeah, which is why I don't understand why you did what you did. Like, I
Yeah.
know you and your
It's
people,
just,
like something is crazy to make you abandon a mission like mid mission, and it's great because Atticus says, what is he, Simon? Like, he needs to know, like, what is Jesus?
Mhm.
What's he doing? Like, why is this happening? And he says, I'm just interested to see what happens next. Which I find interesting. So we'll see
Mhm.
what happens, if there's something deeper going on with Atticus or not. But
But yeah,
like you,
I'll
I
go.
don't want to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, you go.
I was just gonna say, also, like you said, he also warns Simon Z that the order is there,
Yeah.
and basically is like, you need to leave so these zealots leave, because if there are zealots here, that's not good for either of us.
Yep.
Because I'm gonna have to clean up your mess, and you're not gonna like that. And then Simon is realizing, like, oh crap, like I turned my back on the one group of people nobody would ever want to turn their back on. Like, they're gonna follow me everywhere. This is not good.
Correct. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's is an interesting scene. I love the guy who plays Atticus. Like, he crushes this role. Atticus is one of my favorite characters.
It reminds me of some like Assassin's Creed stuff.
Right. Yeah, I think, yeah, tie in the parkour in there too, and yeah, he nailed it. But yeah, the next time we see Gaius is at the very end of the episode, in what I like to call tender moments with Gaius and Matthew. I don't have a cool soundbite. I should get one. Just a real cute little ditty. But Matthew runs into Gaius outside of Matthew's own old house, and it's just like, I love these scenes because like, Gaius greets Matthew with a shalom, which is hilarious. Like, even Matthew laughs, and Gaius says, "Did I say it wrong? Like, what? Like, I'm just trying to greet you, man."
Trying to be
But
cool.
like, Gaius tries so hard to be like a caring friend, but like can't, and it's so funny. Like, I love it. It's so
He doesn't
funny.
know how to approach the boundary between, him and I mean he is still a trained soldier.
Yeah.
Like there's an element of that. And I mean, I feel like when you're a trained, like he's a trained killer, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's, you know, almost like enforcing the law now, but like, you know, um, I'd say it's probably like, honestly, probably, I can't get rid of this. Sorry.
I feel you.
somebody that's like, 18, they sign up for the military, they go off, they're in crazy things, and now they're coming back to be like a police officer.
Yeah.
Like honestly, like I mean, that's it. I think it's a
Makes
pretty good
sense, yeah.
correlation here. And so like he's a trained killer that is trying to be like emotional and do exactly what he probably has been trained not to do, and let his
Right.
emotions, and so yeah, no, it's a pretty interesting.
It's great because Matthew's like, so what are you doing here? And he's like, well, I'm stationed here, so of course I
Duh.
would walk by
Be
your house
sitting
at some
outside your
point,
house
right?
at night looking
Yeah.
in,
Yeah, it's totally not weird. But yeah, it's just it's man, I liked this scene a lot, and it's just because of the awkward, like, caring relationship between Matthew and Gaius, and he's like asking Matthew all these questions about like how he's been, what he's been up to, and like
Mhm.
I don't know. It's great. And then it gets interrupted with the other disciples coming, which is hilarious in context with things that happened earlier in the episode. So we'll get back to it. But
Yeah.
yeah, that wraps up our Roman segment of episode
Now
2
let's
here.
go into our romance segment.
Hey-o, look at that.
So you got,
Dang. Well,
we'll just
dude,
follow that arc real quick.
all
It's
right,
not really,
let's get it out of the way.
they are doing married stuff, and
Peter and his
scene
lady
end.
friend,
Yep.
his wife.
And so scene over. That's it.
The main point to take away for here is Peter wants to start a family.
Yes.
He's like, basically like, let's start a family.
Yes.
That's the main takeaway.
Yep. And that basically saying like, I'm here to, I'm not going away right now.
Right. I'm back. Let's do
Yeah.
this.
So,
Rip.
I think we should end with, I really want to, we'll end with obviously what, this ending scene pretty much, but
Mhm.
I do want to end with leading up to that, or the whole conversation at the table.
The
You know what I'm talking
meeting.
about? The meeting, yes,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
this is like this scene like wrecked my mind.
Oh yeah, no, it's good.
So, let's just tie up any loose ends before we jump to that.
Yeah, I'm just like quickly looking through the bar.
I think it's the bulk of the episode, to be honest.
Yeah,
with you.
there's really two big things left. The conversation with Matthew and his parents, which
yeah,
I thought
yeah.
was great.
Yes.
Before we get into that, there's the conversation of Mary, Tamar, and Rama about more Thomas and Rama stuff.
Yep. Oh yeah,
And
that's
they're packing up to go move into Matthew's old house.
Yes, because Matthew has given them. Yep. Which is nice of him.
Yeah, it's great time. But let's talk about the conversation with Matthew and his parents. This was so good. This part is, what happens after Matthew's dad opens the door. They have a conversation around the table, and yeah, man, it's good stuff. What did you think of it?
I mean, it's so good. And I think one of the main things that I like about it is that I think it's almost like he felt like from what I picked up, is they were kind of like, sorry kind of thing. Like, that type. It's like this, maybe not even explicitly saying it in the beginning, but like, it's clear that they're both apologetic or going to explicitly apologize, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it almost seems like they're making light of it, and he's like, no, like I have to like he has to reconcile it, and he has to reconcile and accept, like almost like repent. He has to repent, and he knows that, and he knows he has to explicitly say, like, I did this, I was this way, like I was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And he has to like call it, and he's doing that. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's just,
yeah.
It's good, because I think sometimes, like, even I could do this a lot. You kind of glaze over these types of
Yeah,
things
you
when you're
just
like,
come and you're like, I'm sorry. But like
yeah, and it's like,
Matthew's like, no, I'm
why are you
sorry
sorry?
because
Yeah,
like shamed our family. I ruined your reputation. Like you lost your friends and your business because of me. Why? Because I wanted to be better than everyone and I wanted to have a comfortable life.
yeah.
And that is selfish. And my selfish actions ruined my family. I am sorry.
Hmm.
Uh and man, that takes a lot to I mean, it takes a lot to apologize, but like to yeah, I mean, he just goes into it, man. It's good.
Yeah, you're like, I wanted to be better than everyone else. I loved affluence, and so it's just so I just thought it was such a good scene, and it shows that, like, they both were moved by the Sermon on the Mount. It both hit them, and so because he was there,
Yeah.
um,
That's the turning point in the conversation. Matthew's like, I gotta atone for my sins, right? And his
uh-huh.
dad's like, you're not the only one that needs to.
Yes,
Like we were there too, and even though all the stuff he did was like kind of despicable, like God, like I think he says God should strike me down right here for
yeah.
disowning me.
Well, I
Like
think
that is
it's
just completely uncalled for.
yeah, and it's almost like the like eye for an eye. I mean, because Jesus kind of wrecks that and says, like, no, it's not. You turn your other cheek and you get slapped in the other one too. You
Mhm.
you take one eye, well, give them the other. And that's not an easy thing to do. Excuse me, especially just I just like it's like just out of nowhere it
That's
happens.
all right.
Um,
Dude, I feel you. It's a
so
fun game for the listeners to play. It's like who's
when will
coughing?
he, yeah, who's
Name that
come?
cough. Is it Mike
Yeah.
or James?
So it's not an easy thing to do at all. And so I think that's where his dad is even like no, like you have to let me apologize too. Like I was wrong here, even though like you did pretty bad things to our family here. Like you should, and even the Jewish people,
Yeah.
like you I was still wrong. I still
Yeah.
should not have disowned you. I should have taken that slap and still loved you.
Yeah.
And that's where he's I don't know. So it's good, man. It just man, you got to love these types of stories
Yep.
cuz I don't know if I don't think they happen enough in life, but when they do, it's like this beautiful scene of like, um
Yeah. It's great too because you're seeing like the impact of Jesus in their life,
yeah.
right? Like this is a direct result of what they both heard come out of
Yeah.
Jesus's
And
mouth, and that's like such a cool thing.
and it's really in line with what you just said is that like you're watching a disciple be transformed. Like they didn't just they're not just rock stars out of the gate. Like because they were disciples. They were I mean they would say they probably are term day like rock stars. Like people knew them.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? They knew that this was the group of people following Jesus surrounding him. And like, you know, I think we sometimes glaze over the fact that like they were transformed from day one of to the end. Like they're different from that. I don't know. It's just yeah.
No, yeah, you're spot on there for sure.
Um
But yeah, that's that scene. So let's bring episode 2 home with a massive scene. I mean, this kind of is broken up into 3 parts. You have the meeting here in Simon Peter's house. You have the conversation between Jesus and little James, and then you have the actual end of the episode, the meeting of all the disciples. So yeah, what wrecked you here in the meeting?
um well, this is where I guess I don't know if maybe not wrecked is the right word, but like up until this point you had this like they're a crew, like they're a team, they're all going to go and like and I think if you look it's like such a short thing it says, I don't know, I'd have to go back and look, but it's like he sends them out, the disciples out 2 by 2.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's, you know, I guess I just, up until this point, I really didn't process the fact that like they're all about to go out 2 by 2, and that's just that's, I don't know. I don't know why it wrecked my thoughts here so much, but like I think it's one of those things that happen so briefly, and
Mhm.
the brevity of saying they go off 2 by 2, that you
Mhm.
miss the point that they probably sat in a room like this,
Yeah.
conversating about this, and it's like probably teamed up with how did they just figure out who was going to go with who? How are we
Yeah.
going to fit, like, and then they're off, and then you're like, what in the you,
What in tarnation? Yeah.
imagine, I mean, put yourself in the shoes, like, you're just like, "All right, dude, I'm gonna go now, nothing but my tunic."
Right. And by
Right?
the
Like,
way, like we've heard like 5 teachings. Like, how do you
yeah,
expect us to go preach now? Like, basically. Um, yeah, it's crazy. And it's funny because let me just I think when you're watching the show, everyone should just read through Matthew. Because like everything that happens in the show is in Matthew also. And so like I had just read this part of Matthew like 2 days before this episode aired. So seeing it played out after just reading it was really, really cool.
mhm,
One thing I noticed while I was reading Matthew is right before this scene takes place in scripture, Matthew lists the 12 disciples. And so as I was reading them, I was like, oh, yeah, he's in the show. He's in the show. He's in the show. And then I got down to Bartholomew and I was like, he hasn't been, I haven't heard his name on the show yet. And then continue to go down the list. I'm like, all right, cool. So they're going to meet one more person. And then I was like, wait a second. Nathaniel's not on the list. And I was like, that must be one of those pesky name changes.
yeah,
So I thought that was something interesting for just from reading and watching. But yeah, this scene is super cool. And along with just like the logistics of it, of taking that like 2 sentences, there are some like direct quotes from him, like him talking about like we're only going to the Jewish people, we'll get to the Gentiles and everyone else later. The granting of authority to heal the sick and cast out demons and all that stuff. Like those being directly from scripture too. But I just love the fact that they're just like, bro, you just gave your first legit sermon and now you're telling us to like go out without you and preach? We don't know what we're doing. Like,
uh-huh,
I love that aspect. I love them trying to like wrap their heads around the fact that Jesus is giving them the authority to do the works that they've seen him do. Like, he's like, you're going to be able to heal the sick, heal the lame, cast out demons, and like continues, like is about to continue with another thing. And he like looks around the room and he's like stops mid sentence. He's like, oh, why are you guys looking at me like that? Like, and everyone's just dumbfounded. Um, and I thought that was really cool. 2 things. One, I relate so much to Nathaniel in this part of the episode because he's like just totally not understanding after Jesus says like, he's granting them the authority to do all those things. Nathaniel's like, did I miss a ceremony or something? Like, what? And he's like, this is it. And he like looks down, he's like, I don't feel different. And Jesus like, it doesn't matter what you feel like you can do this. Like, I'm telling
mhm,
you could do this. And just the fact that he's just like not comprehending like
yeah,
how they're going to be able to do all the things Jesus is saying. That's one thing that stuck out to me. The second thing, the first time I noticed this, the second watch, I really noticed this. Little James, so annoyed during like 3/4 of this scene, which we'll talk about later. But you can just see his facial expression as he's like telling them what they're going to go do. does not look happy. Does not look happy at all.
Why don't I remember this one?
It's not really like a focal point, but
Okay.
like he's in some shots here, and he's just when Jesus starts talking about they're going to be able to heal people.
Oh, all right.
Like
Yeah,
his
I do. I know what you're saying. My goodness. Yeah.
demeanor definitely gets
For
a
some
wet
reason, my
towel thrown
mind
on it.
didn't remember who little James was, but no,
Did you pick up on that?
Oh yeah, no, I'm looking at a scene right now. He's upset. He's just because he can't reconcile. So I might as well just jump into it, right? Or
Yeah.
do you want to? Okay, I guess.
I
That's
mean, yeah. Is there anything in particular you want to? Because we can get into that detail after the meeting, because there's a lot going on there. Is there anything from this particular meeting scene that you wanted to touch on? Like, did you find the pairings interesting? Eden is like, as she's serving, is just like her demeanor is equally getting a wet towel thrown on it, because the whole conversation with Peter's like, let's start a family, I'm gonna be here, and then Jesus is like, I'm sending you like out, guys, and she's like, what?
Yeah, I think what's crazy to me with this is that like it's no longer like Jesus even says it here, like you guys are gonna know what it's like to truly give up your life. That I'm doing, like, and for the most part, you see later on, like, and even in Acts, like they all, I mean, their lives are taken, and so like you just, I don't know, man, it's just crazy, like it's getting real for him. And you can even see it on Peter's face, because he was thinking about the future. He was thinking about this. He's thinking about the Messiah. Now he's being told that you're going to give up your lives. And right now, like, I know Jesus typically speaks in parables, but like the way he said that in this scene, at least, is like very non-parabolistic, like, that's another word you say with
Yeah,
confidence.
no.
But
That's very true.
and so it's what seems like that excitement is now gripping. There's a word that I was trying to think of, but I don't think I'm gonna think of it. It's like you get that bitter taste of reality, yeah, I don't know, man. It's like one of those things where it's like, this is going to change everything, like, and for the most, Jesus is being like a leader right here, right? Obviously he's a leader, is Jesus, right? His disciples, his group, but like he's like, you want to lead, you want to be a disciple, like it's kind of like what you were saying earlier, like, well, guess what, man? Like, you need to go lead. Like, you are gonna do what you know in your, what you think to yourself right now that you can't do, you got to go do. So do it, and you'll figure it out. I don't know. It's just, it's just, it's going to change everything, and it's going to mature them. They're going to be different after this. Like, there's no way they're walking away from the experience of going out 2 by 2 to all the different countries around that, or, areas, and saying like, they're going to walk away the same. No, they're going to be changed. It's, I don't know. I guess I had so much like empathy on this scene that I couldn't imagine sitting down at this table and being like, oh, wow, like, you want me to leave? Like, you're not going to be with us? We're not going to be together? Yeah. We're not going to be doing, like, this is, I don't know.
Do you think they thought they would ever do anything like this?
I mean, he's kind of said it before in like you're going to be able to do what I do, And so he's kind of alluded to, at least in this show it has. I think that they are comfortable. They're comfortable. No, that's a good, they've grown comfortable with being with Jesus. And typically, from my experience, is that we're not really called to be comfortable. And usually when we're comfortable, we may need to address or think about like, why are we comfortable? And I don't mean like comfortable with your family or this, but like in life I don't know. Maybe that's an overstatement on something, but like I just we're not called to be comfortable, but I also don't mean that we're called to go, parachute into you know, a
Yeah, no,
different
I get
country.
it. I get
You
what
know what I
you're
mean?
trying to
Like
say.
there's obviously there's the boundaries, and I'm not, but like, or yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I think this is. I don't know if they thought that this was like gonna happen, and I
Yeah.
think they all seem pretty surprised, and I think they all seem to be like like kind of going with the flow, like all right, well Jesus said, but
Yeah.
like I don't know if I like this.
Yeah, and
This may be the first time, sorry, but that they're realizing like what their job is not all cracked up to be what they thought it was.
right, right. Yeah, they're not just going to be sitting under Jesus learning. They're going to get their hands dirty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love one of them's like basically like we're not qualified for this, pretty much paraphrasing.
Mhm.
And Jesus like, well, if I wanted like religious leaders and scholars, wouldn't wouldn't have ended up with this group. Like,
Yeah, right.
sorry guys. And I love how Simon Z says, he doesn't need us, he wants us, which is uh, I love that. So true too. I mean, God doesn't need us to do
Yeah.
anything, but he wants to move through us, which is great. There's the obvious scene of Simon Z being paired up with Matthew, zealot versus tax collector, awkward. And what else? There was one other thing, maybe. Yeah, it's just
Oh,
like a really a good scene in it.
Jesus gave Thomas his blessing.
Oh, of course. Yeah, sends him in that direction because that's where Rayma's father lives, of course.
Yes.
Oh, the other thing I was gonna say, more on Judas like trying to leave his mark, so to speak. Like he speaks up and he's like, I've devised a plan to make sure all of our resources and finances are in order so we can support this
Mhm.
ministry to change the world. And which again, like goes to point out like what you said earlier, like he's maybe motivations aren't perfect, so to speak. He does get appointed as like basically the treasurer of the group. Here, Philip nominates Matthew. Matthew declines and nominates Judas, and there we have it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
No.
that one snuck up on me.
So yeah, no, this leads us up to, you want to jump into little James or?
Yeah. I think this scene impacted me more so knowing
Well,
the background
yeah,
of the actor and stuff,
uh-huh.
which I think just makes makes the scene super powerful. Because like you talked about in an earlier episode, we've talked about, is little James actually like disabled or have a condition or like have an affliction of some sort? We don't know. But the actor who plays little James does. Do you remember what he has?
I believe it's cerebral palsy.
And you had mentioned that they they cast him, he has this, and then he asked to incorporate it into the character, and so they did, right?
Yeah. That's what
So
my wife's research, but yes.
there you go. Well, she was a teacher, so is a teacher, so
she's pretty
I
good at
I trust it. Yeah.
So,
So with that in mind, and this upcoming scene, it just made it like way more impactful to me because I'm sure this exact scene is something, and I know because Have you seen the I mean, we're the official Chosen podcast, but like the official Chosen podcast that they have like after the live streams or whatever that Dallas was on with the actor who plays Little James, then they're two hosts that are nowhere nearly as talented and skillful at talking about the Chosen episodes as you and I are, but
Yeah, correct.
whatever.
Absolutely.
I watched he talked about this scene and I watched and it was really good. I recommend you go find that and watch it, anyone listening. But yeah,
I did not
he's
see
even
that,
like,
so I'm gonna go find that.
yeah, he's like, yeah, this is something I struggle with. So like doing the scene was like crazy because it's literally questions I've asked God, right?
Well,
So I imagine there probably wasn't much acting besides like the accent in
no,
this scene for
I
a little James.
literally I couldn't help but I thought nothing of the character Little James in this scene. All I thought about was the actor
Mhm.
and like how real it was for him. Like I was
Yeah.
over my wife's like kind of
Oh
tears go,
yeah, yeah.
and like it's just because the reality of that is like that's the reality, and like it's I don't know, man. It was such a very impactful scene, and I can't believe that even thinking of starting this episode out, I didn't for almost forgot about it for a moment, and
Yeah.
like because it was so impactful because it's just like
Yeah.
it's
It's
burning in him. He has to, and it's
because he brought it up in the episode Matthew 4:24 around the campfire. He brought it up there. He sees Jesus healing all the people that are coming while they're wherever they were. I forget where they were. Haven't heard of it since. And then you see the tension rising during the meeting, right, where he's talking about healing, and
yeah.
little James like, bro, what the heck? I'm sitting right here. Like, let's start in this room, maybe. Like, and then he approaches. I don't want to say like confronts Jesus, but just direct and is like, hey, like, what about me, man? Like,
Uh-huh.
and Jesus then flips it and he's like, well, do you want to be healed? Which I think like in my sixth sense of humor is just like a rug pull out from under little James, because like what's he gonna say? No. Like
Yeah.
um but like he's like, yeah, of course. He's like, duh. Yeah, it's just this whole conversation was a lot.
Well,
What do
it
you
is,
think?
and my mind just goes in it. It's this. I think what I liked about the scene is because it asks the just the age old question, of like, why do we suffer, right? Why does some of us suffer? Why does not, others not? And it's not a. I don't know, man. It's just such a complex thing that I just don't. That little James is right. Like, imagine it, dude. Imagine being little James as you're watching people get healed. And like, here you are, have struggled with it, and you're so close. You're doing the work of the one that is healing. You know what I mean? And and you can't, and you're not being healed. Like, it's just so, I, there's like I mean, imagine jealousy being built up, like all these feelings, like I think like it's just insane, and I think Jesus is kind of getting to in this. He says like, hey man, like, do you know how many people you're going to impact this way? Like, I thought I I think sometimes I think back on my life and I'm like, well, why did I have to go through some of these hardships or these things, and like I feel like on the other side of it, I'm like, oh, like because I can impact these people, like
Mhm.
like I think it's pretty inspiring sometimes to hear that I dropped out of high school, and like
Yeah.
and where I'm at now, and so like, believe me, but when I was in that time of in high school, it was not a pretty, it was just not like that was the
Yeah.
lowest portions of my life. So I guess like looking at this just looking at him just not being healed, like he's giving, like literally from me picking up on this scene is that he could have said, Jesus, heal me right now. and Jesus would have healed him. Right? Like, did you pick up on that?
That's true. I didn't really think of that because he doesn't say like
Do you want to? Like, he
heal
says,
me
do you
now.
want?
He's like, do you want to be healed? Well,
Yeah.
yeah. He doesn't say do
It's the
it.
same question. It's the same question that he's asked all the others, right? I mean,
Mhm.
do you want to be healed? Right? Like, and the leper, the paralytic man. I mean, he asked him though, right? I mean, I think that's what he asked him. So I think if he was persistent and little James came to him with like this indecisiveness on whether he didn't come to him and say like heal me. He didn't come to him and rip a ceiling off the roof and get dropped in on a mat. He didn't
Yeah.
come to him, like he didn't come to him crawling into an area as a leper that no one wants you around,
Yeah.
like that you should be banished and like you're going into territory that he didn't come to him those ways. He came to him kind of like, hey man, like why?
Yeah.
Why? He wanted to seek why, not like it wasn't a command of action or like a demand or any like it
Yeah.
wasn't a I want this, like it's a why, it's curiosity, it's this. And so
Yeah.
like I really do believe in that scene, like at least following with this storyline here, and that if that person if he little James came up and is like I want this right now, I don't think Jesus would have denied him from it. He left him with a
Right.
choice. He left him with the fact that like what God did to us with free will. Like he left him with that choice to say like, do you want to do work? Like, do you want not do work? Do you want to be a light to people in a way that none of these other disciples can?
Mhm.
Right? I don't know. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. And like outside of the healing aspect, like if you zoom out,
huh?
I think like the overall like moral here is how impactful um like how does he say exactly? Um like believing, praising, worshiping Jesus through your suffering.
Yeah, exactly.
Like anyone can worship and like surrender after a blessing or like on the mountaintop or after a miracle. Um, but there is something that makes absolutely no sense about somebody worshiping and praising like in the midst of suffering. And that
Yeah.
draws people in because they're like,
Mhm.
why are you doing this? Like,
Yep.
your situation is not good. Like, why are you worshiping Jesus? Like, you're not in a good place. Something doesn't make sense here. But like, I don't know. I
No,
thought
it
I
is.
loved that.
That's really good, and because it's almost like saying like, well, why do we worship then? What is
Mhm.
the reason why we worship? Do we worship to receive something, or do we
Right?
worship to give something? And so I think
Exactly.
that's a huge thing right there that I'm just picking up on right here, is because him being that way and worshiping is like it's a I'm doing this regardless, and I don't care whether I receive something or not. I'm doing
Right.
it to give because it's a give, right? I mean, I feel
Right.
like we all like, we think like worship and we're like, all right, I'm gonna get a feeling from God in this moment, but
Mhm.
it's not about that. I mean, that's great if it happens, but like you're giving, it's a time of giving,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Like,
You're worshiping God for two reasons. Like, what he's done, right? That's obvious, one obvious reason.
mhm,
But like who he is and the hope of his promises, right? You got like three areas. I mean, I'm sure there's like many more, but just off the top of my head during this conversation, there's three areas that popped up. And like I feel like number 2 and 3 on that list are often overlooked and like not like people don't participate in those ones because I don't know. Maybe I'm like overstepping or off base completely here, but it's obviously very easy to worship for number one for what he's done.
Mhm.
But like sometimes it's really hard to worship in your circumstance. If you're like really wrapped up in your circumstance, like who he is and what the hope of his promises are. But like if you can do those things, like that's
Mhm.
where the breakthrough comes. That's where the transformation comes. That's where your mind is like your spirit is just flipped, right?
Yeah.
And you can like enter into those promises, right?
Mhm.
I don't know if any of that makes sense, but
No, it does. Yeah.
I'm just amazed that came out like without a cough interruption, and my cough was kind enough to wait until I finished that sentence. The other thing that I thought, the one thing that like brought tears to my eyes in this scene, was just the last thing before Jesus walks away. Where he goes, sorry, the captions are slow. All right, he says, James, remember, you will be healed. Wow, this is such a delay. It's only a matter of time. Which again alludes to that promise, right? Whether it's
Imagine.
like another time, like a matter of time, as in like when we leave this like earthly body and we're in heaven, where there is no sickness, no any sort of destruction, not like we are completely remade whole and new, like perfect, right?
Uh-huh.
Or if it's literally like God's timing literally is not really comprehensible to us, right? So like maybe it's just not little James's time to be healed right now. Like in God's timing, maybe let for the sake of this conversation of it's only a matter of time, maybe James gets healed like a year down the road. Like God's promises they're always there, but they operate in God's timing, which I think is another thing that sometimes, like personally, I overlook that, right? We expect everything to happen in an instant, right? Sometimes that's not how God works. I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that, but or if that even makes sense. But
No, it
that's one
does.
thing. Go ahead.
But yeah, no, I agree. I just struggle with these types of things because imagine like being that actor too. Because do you believe that it's gonna that he can be healed now in this modern age of without you know what I mean? Like, does the actor believe? Does the character believe? Does
Yeah,
like
I don't know.
and
Good
and
questions.
and so like and and I'm not trying to be like the downer here, but like I don't know if I don't I don't have high I don't know, man. It's like one of those personal struggles with me. Like I sometimes like I sometimes don't pray big things because I feel like they're unachievable. And like so if me personally, I'm trying to really be empathetic here. And like if it was me personally, I had cerebral palsy, I'm in this point, I probably would have a very low expectation of being healed from that. Right. And I don't know, maybe that's probably the wrong way to approach it, but like I don't know. So I don't know, man. I don't want to go into this is one of the things that my mind struggles and it goes in circles and
Yeah.
and so like I can't be the only one here. It has this type of thing, but like I
Oh,
struggle
yeah.
with like belief in this type of healing. I don't know, right? I don't
No,
know.
I understand where you're coming from, and I think like there was there are lines in worship songs that used to confuse me, right? One of them being like I would hear a line like this every so often in worship song here or there, like Lord, I believe, but help my unbelief, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What does that even mean? Like, what are you saying? And I think it kind of applies to what you're talking about here. Like, obviously, you believe in God. You believe in Jesus as, our savior. Jesus is who he said he is. But like you're saying, you're struggling with that, like, um, I don't want to call it straight up unbelief, but like that unbelief of
Practicality.
like, yeah, the logistics of the miraculous, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's kind of like one of the scenarios that a line like that applies to, right? Which now makes sense to me, you know?
Well, yeah, well, because it's also the structure of the world that we live in, right?
Mhm.
Like, you know, regardless of, okay, say he healed him right there. Well, guess what? I don't know, by judging by his age, within 60 years, he's probably going to be dead.
Mhm.
And like, I'm not trying to be morbid here, but like the reality is like it there's structure to the world, and it is literally you're born to it and you die from it. And you know what I mean?
Right.
You die, and so it's like at some point, like it's just at some point, there's only so much that you can pray for. Does that make sense? Like,
Yes and no. Like my only rebuttal would be, um, like we can't. One, we have to remember like who we're praying to. Like I'm not just praying to James or Becca or like Joe Biden or the Pope. Like we're making requests to the person who literally created everything.
yes.
And to like I sincerely do not want this to come across the wrong way. So please don't take it the wrong way. And I feel like prefacing anything with that is going to immediately make it be taken the wrong way. But I mean this in no way other than to further the conversation. Um, to think that healing somebody of cerebral palsy is too much to ask for the person who like spoke a word and existence appeared is, I don't know. Like I don't know how those two things could go hand in hand. But I see where you're coming from because it's not like every day you're seeing people with cerebral palsy be healed in front of us, right? So I understand, but I also at the same time struggle to, well, it's hard to see the miraculous. I struggle to think that it's unachievable, if that makes sense.
So you struggle to think it's on it. Yeah. Okay.
I don't know if that like hopefully that wasn't taken the wrong way.
No, I don't think it's not taken the wrong way. I
Okay.
just, I guess, okay. So I guess what I'm saying is, okay, so if I pray for my cold is going to go away or
Mhm.
my voice is going to come back, right? That's attainable. It's because it's, I don't know, simpler. And by just the structure of how things happen, um, it's almost as if he's able to, you know, my immune system is able to fight it off, right? And it's what God gave me, the God-given immune system, right?
Right,
Like,
right.
and so it's almost in theory, it's a work. I guess what I'm saying is there's limitations, there's boundaries to things. Like if I pray, I can pray every single night that I won't ever die. Or I don't know, I guess that's a dramatic thing, but like it's going to happen. And there's no amount of praying that I could take the heaven and like the afterlife out of. That's not the point here. In this small section of life or time within the universe, right, that I'm in, like there is no amount of praying that I can do to stop that. Right? I mean, do you agree with that? Or like I
Yeah.
guess So what I'm trying to say is that's the drastic. I pushed it all the way to the boundary
right.
right there, right? And so I guess what I'm saying is there seems to be like for me, there seems to be these like limitations on it. And it's not limiting God. It's that like God created a universe for some odd reason. He put us in this universe of causality and free will and like and I guess you would take it from the point of we fell from sin,
Right.
whatever. We're out of the garden, right? We're in this
Yeah,
world
yeah.
that exists that bad things happen, that evil exists, that this, and so it's like I I I just I struggle with the fact that like there's limitations, there's clear limitations to it, and I don't know, and I don't, and again, I'm not boxing God in, I'm boxing in the world that we live in, and
Right.
God clearly distincts that puts a distinction between the worldly things and the heavenly things, right? Like,
Mhm.
so there is some sort of distinction there, and I don't know. Maybe this is my thing, and maybe I'll go through life, struggling to pray big prayers. And I don't, and what I mean is, I don't mean to say this like in that God can't heal him.
Mhm.
What I mean is that like I struggle believing it that he would. I don't know. Does that make sense? It's
No, yeah, and
okay. All
even
right.
with what I said, like, what I said a few minutes ago, like, it's still something that doesn't make sense to me, right?
Mhm.
Because
But it doesn't make
it
sense.
it it does happen, but, like, also it doesn't happen.
But if it doesn't make sense, that means you have disbelief, right? Whether I mean, wrap it into whatever way you wanna wrap it, but, like, it's
Yeah, I
still
mean,
some sort of disbelief. If it doesn't make
yeah,
sense,
but I
there's
mean,
still a, like
there's a lot of things about Jesus and our faith that doesn't make sense to me, right?
but do
Um,
we if we have confidence, is it like a confidence and, like because I feel like, for instance, Paul, when he's in prison, he's like, "He can take me out here, he cannot, I'm content," right? Like,
mhm,
I'm content with whatever God wants to do, right?
mhm.
Like, and so is it no more I don't know, like, it's just there's
Yeah,
no
like,
point in which that it's there's there's gotta
I
be
guess
some
let me put it like this, like, I believe God can do crazy things.
correct, I do too. We're both at that point, yes.
I personally have never seen a miracle. So, like, it's one of those conundrums, right? Like,
Mhm.
we know, according to scripture and reports around, you know, time of our world after scripture,
I mean, there's people miraculously healed from cancer. They're
yeah,
just like,
that
boom, and
miracles
so yeah.
miracles happen. But, like, have I seen one in my personal life to this point? No. I don't think that they're impossible. I just don't understand how they work. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does, and and I think in what I don't know how you might have put it, but, like, maybe it's a struggle for me to say, like, am I praying from a stance of, like, confidence that he'll heal me? Or am I praying from a stance of, like, I'm confident that God can, but, like, I'm
Like
content.
a hope versus, like, uh, a confidence, like
Yeah, and I think I think my confusion lies in the fact that I see people that seem to be, like, confident with it, and they don't seem I mean, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm misinterpreting their but, like, it seems like they're confident saying that, like, um, that it's just that that they know that I guess it just doesn't I don't know sometimes whether they're being confident or just hopeful, right?
right.
Or just content with it. Because
Yeah.
I think it's you have to start with a level of contentment and then pray for that large thing because that's what God I mean, that's what he kind of, pray for your will to be done, right? I mean, that's what it
Mhm.
says. So I mean, at some point, like it's not a matter of what we want, it factors in and God does give his father gives good gifts, right? So it's like
Mhm.
you see all these different areas of scripture that tells you this, but like it's at what stance do you have in the prayer? And so this is like I struggle with prayer. That's just
Mhm.
one of the things that I struggle with. And this is where I'm kind of like, this is one of those like things where I'm like, yeah,
Yeah, no,
I
hey man, I feel you. Like prayer is something that I've been not so greatly, but attempting to work on. Because yeah, that was, and I mean, praying in confidence versus praying in hope is a whole other like wormhole we can get into. But yeah, man, it's a struggle. It's a struggle at times for different things. Yeah, I thought that was a good conversation we had there. You're muted, so I don't know if you're saying anything important. That's okay.
sorry, I thought I was not.
No, that's cool. But yeah, that was good. I think good conversation came out of that. Yeah, so why don't you bring us home here, here with the last scene, the group of disciples here meeting in front of Matthew's house.
Let's see here. Trying to bring this up. Well, I mean, they're all. So we started out. We talked about Gaius
Mhm.
and him being coming there, and that's when all the rest of the disciples show up outside of Matthew's house.
Indeed.
And I think they're all kind of just like, just
Coming to terms with what's about
yeah,
to
what's about to
happen.
happen. That like, whether you like the person next, take a look to the left and look to the right. Like,
Yeah.
um,
They're all a little apprehensive, maybe a little scared, because this is like they've witnessed how Jesus has ruffled the feathers, right? And now they're going out in 6 different ways to do that without Jesus, and
mhm.
that's frightening. But yeah, basically, Simon Peter does a little group exercise, have everyone get next to their partner. They circle around and they pray, um, which is awesome.
Yeah, I
And
like that they pray. It's that and it's because what they're taking is what they learned, and they're actually applying it in a way that they're
what is it?
fearful, right? I mean, that
Mhm.
was what the whole scene was. He said, "You dudes,
Yeah,
like, you cannot just like do everything you just did today out of fear when every time you're scared of something." So what are? They're all standing in a circle, fearful. The team that was bickering and going back and forth, they're brought together in this common thing that they're growing, and they're saying like, "Hey, like, we have to all go out and
mhm.
do this. Let's pray." And so
Yeah.
I like that. I like that scene.
The team is united here, which is great. It's a good scene, and yeah, that's kind of how the episode ends there, and I'm really looking forward to episode 3 here. Um, do you watch the trailers for the episodes? I try not to.
I did for 1 and 2. I have not seen 3 yet, the trailer for it. I don't know. I struggle with trailers. I it's like watching Netflix and you go through this trailer and you're like, "Dude, you just showed me every
All the
scene
important stuff.
of this show. Like, I
Yeah,
don't even want to watch this. Even if it was good, even though most likely I just watched it and it's probably bad. But like I don't even want to. Like,
yeah,
what's the point? I know what happens now.
exactly. So I don't know what to expect for episode 3. That's coming up on Sunday, which
Yeah.
is Christmas.
Yeah.
So depending on when you listen to this, hope you have a wonderful Christmas, or I hope you had a wonderful Christmas. Just want
Mhm.
to cover all the bases. Or if you're listening to this on Christmas, I hope you're having a wonderful Christmas.
Yeah.
Let's cover
I
them
think,
all.
yeah, if you're listening, well, you're putting this out
I'm gonna
now.
try to
Yeah.
put it out tomorrow, but we'll see how that actually goes.
Yeah. Since it's past midnight.
Yeah.
um,
Hopefully I can wake up for work. So let's
yeah.
one foot
I,
in front of the other before we get ahead of ourselves.
but yeah, and so if you're listening on mine, it might be already Christmas has already passed. I'll just let you know that. So hopefully, and it probably New Year too. So hopefully you've had a good Christmas, a good New Year. No, Actually, I don't know. You'll know when it is because you're listening to it, and that's all that matters.
There you go. All right, that's the perfect way.
So man, yeah.
Well,
I
in the
can't even laugh
meantime,
because my voice is so gone.
right? Yeah. I can't believe we powered through. It's
Mhm.
12:15. You need to go to sleep because I feel like you haven't gotten much just based off your travels from yesterday. So make sure you head over to nerdybible.com and check out what James is doing over there. Head over to showboysmedia.com if you want to see what we're doing. And until next time, subscribe, like, rate, review, follow, share this episodes with your friends. We're finally talking about the new stuff, which is so exciting to me.
Yes.
So hopefully we'll see you back. Leave a comment on the episodes wherever you're listening to or watching them at. Let us know your thoughts. We didn't talk about any sort of controversial or hot button issues within the Christian world in either of these, episodes 1 or 2. So I'm sure you have nothing to comment or say about our thoughts or opinions. So, don't or do. I don't care. And we'll see you next time.
Yes. Goodbye.